Russia says it does not want war.
But the country warns it will defend its interests. French President Emmanuel Macron spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin to try to ease tensions during a phone call earlier today. Putin says he's studying the U.S. and NATO's written responses before deciding on further action.
President Biden is pledging to forcefully defend Ukraine if Russia decides to invade. But Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has urged him to dial down the rhetoric. Mr. Biden is also considering more financial sanctions. CBS News foreign correspondent Holly Williams has more from Kyiv.
A source tells CBS News that on that phone call with President Biden yesterday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky asked the US to tone down its rhetoric about an imminent invasion. Now, that may sound strange because, after all, it's Ukraine that has roughly 100,000 Russian troops sitting on its border. But actually, the Ukrainian government has consistently been urging calm, seemingly because it knows that panic, people clearing out supermarket shelves, people fleeing the country, would be extremely destabilizing. As you can see, things here look very normal. And that's perhaps also because Ukrainians have been living with Russian aggression for years, including a war in eastern Ukraine against Russian-backed separatists that's claimed more than 14,000 lives, according to the Ukrainian government. But this place, the Maidan, the square that is the symbolic heart of Kyiv, is a reminder of just how fragile Ukraine is, because it's caught in a tug of war between the West and Russia. We were here almost exactly 8 years ago when there were mass protests against the country's then president, who was pro-Russian. Things turned violent, state security forces opened fire, and it ended up with dead bodies on the pavement very close to this spot. Now, different countries have different assessments of what Russia might do, and there's no question that Ukraine perceives the threat. But the Ukrainian government seems to be trying to avoid panicking this country and its roughly 45 million people. Holly Williams, CBS News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
For more on this, we want to bring in CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini. Christina, we know President Biden and Ukrainian President Zelensky spoke by phone on Thursday. It's kind of some different reports, though, or at least interpretations of how that call went. What can you tell us?
Well, as you heard Holly just mention, the Ukrainians are asking the U.S. to stop saying imminent. You know, President Zelensky has told his people to stay calm, to keep going, and they're really afraid that all this talk of impending war, impending doom could spook the economy and in a way become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The U.S. has pushed back and said, look, we think the phone call was productive. It was 90 minutes. We're on the same page. We've offered support to Ukraine. However, we want to tell the truth, and the truth is that there's way too many troops at the U.S., at the Ukrainian border for it to be a military exercise. Russia has positioned itself with the ability to invade Ukraine on very short notice, and the U.S. is saying we want to make people aware of that threat, and it is a real threat. But the Ukrainian government is finding itself in this very difficult position, whereas, this conflict has been going on since 2014, and it's struggled at times to get Western allies, to get the United States to pay attention to it, to send it what it needs, to send weapons, to send reinforcements, to send any of the above, or to even give it the time of day. Now, all of a sudden, it's saying, wait, okay, hang on, thank you so much for paying attention, but also, let's not make this a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's not say the Russians are going to invade, the Russians are going to invade, the Russians are going to invade, and essentially kind of force them into a course of action that they may or may not have decided to pursue.
Yeah, the redcoats are coming. Well, is this the end that Putin is looking for, some sort of division here?
I mean, I think that's the big question, is what does Vladimir Putin want? And nobody but him can answer that. We've asked the Secretary of State, we've asked NATO allies. No one is quite sure what he's trying to get out of this, because it seems that he doesn't quite have enough forces, even though 100,000 is a lot, to invade the entire country and hold on to Ukraine. And it's unclear what exactly the objective would be, what that would get him. It seems more likely he would like a friendlier government in Ukraine. So how does he do that? Or is this all to get attention, to get the West to focus on him and to try to get concessions out of NATO, out of the US, and try to claw back some of the defeats and some of the territories that were lost to the Soviet Union after it collapsed? Putin has always been a little more than a little bit upset about how the Cold War ended, and he's been holding a grudge all these years, and he might kind of see this as his opportunity to try to gain some of that prestige, some of that territory, some of those boundaries, that buffer zone he wants between him and the rest of Europe to protect Russian territorial integrity. The question is, why now? And are the U.S. and NATO? The U.S. and NATO have both said that all those are non-starters and they're not going to give on that. So is there some other objective that we don't know about, that we can't see, that is the real motivation behind this? Or does he simply want more territory and he wants to take over Crimea more permanently and make it part of Russia?
You know, I remember so well the fall of the Berlin Wall. I remember the changes happening, and it's amazing 30 years ago to have imagined that we would be kind of right back where we started. It's
you know, the last time I was in Berlin, Michelle, that wall was still up. I was 3 years old, and I remember seeing the wall and asking why we couldn't go to the thing on the other side.
I feel like you're showing off on the age there, Christina.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I was an adult.
I was in college.
And it had just fallen, and I made my way there to Checkpoint Charlie just to make sure I could see it in person. Christina Ruffini, a very well-traveled person.
A young Christina Ruffini.
Yes, it is.
A youngin'.
Yes, it is. Yes, she is. Thank you so much.
Listen, guys, I'm much older than I used to be. Thank you so much.